In this episode, we sit down with Michael Green, the owner of Alabama Climate Control and Conditioned Air, to talk about business challenges, company culture, and what it really takes to grow a successful business. His story is filled with 2 acquisitions and an incredible amount of hard-won wisdom on what it really means to grow a company the right way and to treat people well. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Well, Mr. Green, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So first question for you, and you actually have 2 businesses. You have Conditioned Air and you have Alabama Climate Control, but I want to start out by asking you about the story of starting Conditioned Air.
Well, actually, I bought Conditioned Air. And I don't know, it was a journey because I started out, I was a sales guy, did industrial ventilation and stuff back in the 90s. And then a small mom and pop rep company, I worked for them, and then ended up going to work for Siemens, which is a big German company, and did building controls and energy projects with Siemens. And Conditioned Air was actually, they were small. We had done one little project with them, so I knew who they were.
So they're a client?
They were kind of, yeah, they were, because I'd done that one job with them, but I didn't know them that well. They were a small contractor. And I'd been at Siemens 7 or 8 years and had kind of just gotten, I was like, it's time to move on. I need to do something. And I was probably, 35 or so. I was like, I'm running out of time. And so I started looking. I was looking at all kind of stuff. And then another friend of mine had started a business, and the man that owned our business, Phil, had contacted Frank about buying Conditioned Air. He wanted to retire. Frank's like, man, I just started this other one. I can't do it, but I got a guy you need to meet. And so I met him and came in as a 49% partner for 6 years, and then bought the other 51% out. And then actually had met a guy that worked there that was a key cog in the company. He'd been there since 91 when the company started. And so we brought him on as a 25% partner. So he owned 25 and I owned 75%. And then recently, as of last year, first of last year, then he's still working there, but we did a transition to where I bought that 25% out. So he's older than I am. He's wanting to start thinking about retirement. But anyway, I kind of jumped in there. It was really good timing. You know, I was there for a couple of years, and then the 2008 financial crisis hit, and I was sitting there looking at my wife going, I just really screwed our future up.
So what year did you buy it?
It's 06,
okay, wow.
Somewhere right in there. So barely had gotten my feet wet, and the world kind of fell apart on us. And you know, it was, and we were a small company, because when I bought in, we only had, I think we had a total of maybe 20 employees total.
And how many now?
Between both, Conditioned Air itself has about 90, and then we have some outsourced labor that we use as well.
So real quick, step back. So when you were looking at starting a business or buying a business, like what kind of businesses were you looking at?
I was looking for anything. This has always been my theory, because I didn't wake up like as a teenager or in college going, man, I can't wait to grow up and be a mechanical contractor.
Yeah.
that really was not the goal. My goal was, I've always looked at everything, and I treat our company that way now. As long as we can do it and make money and it's legal, then we'll try it. And so, and I always look at, if somebody else can do it, then why can't we do it? So, but in that time frame, I was looking at everything. I looked at everything from a machine shop. I looked at a car wash business. You know, I was desperate, man. I just felt like I had to find. I couldn't work for the man for the rest of my life. I did not want to. I did know enough that I did not want to start something from the ground up. You know, I got a lot of admiration for guys that go in and start them from the ground up, but it's just, you know. We'll talk about Alabama Climate in a second, but you know, when we kind of did that in Alabama when we went over there starting as a ground up organization. It's so hard to scale quickly when you start from the ground up. You can't do it. It's just your growth is really slow. You got no infrastructure, and that's one of the problems in the air conditioning That's not a problem. It's just what you see in the air conditioning. Conditioned air is a commercial and industrial contractor, but if you look around at, most people are going to know all the residential guys that work on their house. You look around at those guys, and most of them are going to be between, say, $600,000 a year in revenue and $1.5 million a year in revenue, and that's where they're at. And most of the owners are in the field working. They're estimating jobs or pricing jobs or fixing air conditioners. Their wife's keeping the books, something like that. And, and so to go, say you're doing $1.5 million or really $1 million, a lot of them, if you're doing $1 million and you go to $2 million, chances are you're going to make less money in your pocket at $2 million than you did at $1 million, because you're adding overhead cost and infrastructure that you've got to have. And then, so you got to really scale. And so most of those guys don't want to do it. And because of that, because you have to.
So when you bought in, what was the revenue?
We were about $2 million when I bought it. So it had good infrastructure. We didn't have a field. The owner wasn't working in the field anymore, or ever. He never worked in the field. He was a licensed mechanical engineer. So he had come from a large design build firm. And so, and $2 million in the mid 2000s was more than $2 million today. For sure.
What was his motivation primarily to want to sell?
When he started it, he worked for a large company in our area called Jesco M&E, and they all traveled. They traveled all over the Southeast doing industrial plants, and so gotten tired of the travel, and so they wanted to start there was a group of them that came over with him. There was 3 or 4 guys that left Jesco with him to start Conditioned Air. And that was their whole deal. They didn't want to travel anymore. So we became kind of a mini Jesco M&E over there doing, and when I say M&E, that's mechanical and electrical. So, and that's what we do now. And even though our name is Conditioned Air, it's kind of confusing because we actually do HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, all commercial and industrial. And so he just wanted it, and he was in his 50s when he started it.
Oh, wow.
And so, actually now, because let's see, so I've actually owned it longer now than he did. So that was kind of, and he just wanted something that he could make a good living at, and he didn't ever want it to be any bigger than what it was. He had no aspirations to grow the business at all. I mean, he got it to the size he wanted it. He had his handful of guys there working. They did their projects. They knew what they were good at. They went after it, and that's what they did. And
so why did he want a partner?
Why?
Yeah.
He didn't really want a partner. He wanted out. He was in his 70s.
Okay, gotcha.
And then, and it worked out good because I learned a lot. The best thing that ever happened, worst and best, was the '08 financial crisis was a big deal, because I was new in the business still, and watching how to it really dictated how we financially run our business to this day, because I saw how tight things could get. It's the only year and technically, I think we lied to ourselves, but we made it look like it made something. I think it made like $5,000 that year, but I think that was just us making ourselves feel good. I really feel like it probably lost money.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty key event.
How'd y'all move through? Like, what did y'all do to change things up?
Well, at that time, I mean, the service department was still running, but nobody was replacing anything. Everything was getting repaired, and it had to be in bad shape to even repair it. And so we never even laid anybody off. We ended up taking some work on the construction side that was not profitable, but we basically took jobs, because the handful of jobs that were out there to get them.
Overhead?
Yeah, I mean, it was just we were taking them at cost. It was just like just to try to keep people employed, keep our guys employed. In some ways, I don't know that was the right decision. I still kind of grapple with that, because you think you're doing the right thing, but then sometimes you don't feel like the appreciation was there for which. The field guys don't understand how tough it was at that time in there, and how really fragile the whole company was at that time, because we were a small company. And but it taught us, hey, don't be leveraged, especially in our industry. I mean, there's some industries where you can leverage up and operate and be good, but in our business, leverage is, I mean, in good times, it's easy to pay back, but we like to be able to, if we say we hit another '08 and we got to downsize, then it's nice to be able to pull all your trucks on the yard and park them, and you're not sitting there when we got $30,000 a month in truck payments we got to make. So, we do finance some stuff, but very little. We pretty much everything we do is, we pay cash for, and we keep a lot of cash on hand because of it, because it's just, this industry is a fickle business, and and it's an interesting business too, because it's the only business I can think of where the consumer doesn't feel like they won unless you lost money.
It's tough.
Because everybody assumes contractors, everybody thinks contractors just make all this money, and it's like, when you're bleeding money is like when they feel like when the consumer is satisfied, oh, we got our money's worth out of them, they lost money on us. And it really feels like that. I've learned that since we acquired ACC in the residential world that's really where they feel like, and in the commercial world too, if you're dealing with a private developer, that's where they feel like they finally won if they keep you from making money. And so it's an interesting business, because you do have a lot of stereotypes to fight with in this industry. Some of it earned, some of it not. And then, so we rocked and rolled there. And then in 2020, we had really good timing again, and decided to buy Alabama Climate Control 3 months before COVID hit. And, but that worked out good too.
At least people are still staying in their homes.
Yeah, it worked. But at the beginning of it, we didn't know what was going to happen.
For sure. I remember all of our home service partners. They were worried at first, but then it was like a couple weeks, and I was like, this is the best it's been. Yeah, it's great. It's great, especially when all the free money started flowing from the government. But, so the reason it drove that acquisition was I'd gone to college at University of North Alabama in Florence, and so that was only a couple hours from Tupelo, and I was like, man, I'd like to start doing service in that area, because I got a lot of friends up there, know that area, and I really like that area. And so, Chris, who, we talked to him, he was a young guy working for us as a service guy. We talked to him into moving over there and running service. And, so we started trying. That's where I figured out that starting from the ground up is much harder. And, so we did that for like 2 years, and we were growing, and we had added a couple of service guys, but it was just like, man, we got to be able to scale this up to be able to get infrastructure. And it's just hard to scale it up very fast. And so we ended up finding Alabama Climate, which was an older company than we were, because it was founded in '76 and owned by the same guy, Chuck Stewart. He was a super guy. And he was in his Chuck was in his late 70s too. Actually, Chuck may have been 80 when we bought him, but Phil was in his 70s when I bought, and then Chuck was in his 80s. And, he had been offered to sell a bunch of times by private equity guys, and the future of the company, in both scenarios, the owners were concerned about the future of the company. We want our company to sustain and survive. And, that was important to both. And neither one of those transactions was about money. There was money, it changed hands, but it was that was probably the least talked about aspect of the transactions, because they all had their money. They were late 70s, early 80s, and Phil's still alive. The guy that started Conditioned Air, and then Chuck died last year. That had Alabama Climate, but it was all about, Chuck didn't have any kids. It was just him and his wife, and they were like, they cared about the company surviving.
How did that opportunity come about with Alabama Climate Control? Was it something you were seeking, or something?
Yeah, we hired one of these finders, which is, you got people listening to this that own a business. They get calls from these third-party firms that are under contract by somebody to go out and locate a business and for sale, and that meets whatever criteria they laid out. So we hired a guy that's what he did over in we knew we wanted to go in the Huntsville area, and I think we met with 3 or 4 other companies over there before kind of zeroing in on this one. And this one had a lot of our mentality on debt. That's the problem. A lot of them we looked at, and I think that's a lot of them in general, were heavily debt laden. They're lifestyle companies. That's what I call a lifestyle. I mean, they live out of their company. It's not they don't let the company survive. It's every dime the company can make goes into somebody's pocket. And so we tried to avoid those, because we looked at some, it was just like, man, there's a ton of debt on this company, and you had to sit there and look at the guy and go like, we'll pay your debt off and you can go home, but there's no money gonna go in, and now I always want the funny thing is every one of them you talk to, they're like, need $1 million. That's like the magic number, especially in these companies that are $1 million to $2 million in revenue. So the magic number is always $1 million. That's what they always want. And some of them are worth $1 million, some of them are worth more than $1 million. And then some of them really aren't worth anything. Even though this guy's living a great life and has a farm with horses and, got several hundred acres and, a 7,000 square foot house or whatever, that's the guy typically that we find that when we were looking at them, the ones we looked at were the ones that were not worth anything because the companies were so highly leveraged that you weren't buying anything. You were just buying debt. And so it's like you just had to pay the debt off and kind of start over. The Alabama Climate was they didn't have any debt. Like when I say, they had a new fleet, all the vehicles were paid for, they didn't even have a line of credit, had a good money market account. So, I mean, it was they owned their real estate outright. So it was kind of like a dream deal. I mean, it was like, it really, and we paid more for it. Now it was a dying company as well, because it did have older ownership. They haven't spent any marketing in 10 years, I guess, probably.
Their revenue was on decline?
Oh, yeah, it was a declining revenue company. And, but it had good employees that had been there a long time. And actually had some, fairly young employees instead of having all old. I mean, there's a lot of guys in their 30s that were still there. And, we just felt like it was a project. It was easier to turn around the decline in revenue than it was to turn around the debt of some of these other ones. And of course, we jumped out there because we were wanting the infrastructure of the office, having bookkeeping over there, having people to answer the phones, having little things like a receiving dock. I mean, that stuff is just important and that you don't think about when you're trying to man up one. And having forklift in place and having a fab shop there. And so it just really kind of helped us out. And but that's when we kind of went after it. And then it's like we were doing all commercial service, and it was kind of like, all right, now we got to learn how to do resident to get to. They did very, very, very little commercial, and they were all residential.
What are the pros and cons of residential versus commercial at this point?
That was what was, going into it. It's kind of funny because it was like all these residential guys are always trying to get in our market, and and they mess our market up, and they're too cheap, and then they always end up in money trouble and all this, and they just need to stick to their market. Well, here we were doing just the opposite, and it was a dramatic learning curve. And what I figured out is both they're two totally different businesses, two totally different sets of employees. There's very little overlap between residential and commercial. Just not. There's not any overlap. And I'm talking about from the employee level. It's just a totally different business mindset. And we've struggled with it a lot. I mean, we've talked with you guys about it. I mean, it's, because on the marketing side, we try to market the way that we like. And I think it hurts us because, nowadays everybody does these, hey, $59, we'll come out to your house and we'll do this and do that. And, and then what the consumers don't see is that anybody that comes to your house is on a commission program. And so that's a really different model. And and it's making us really question. It's making, I'm starting to listen to our guys about we may have to go to that direction on the residential side, because we've never done commission service techs or anything like that. If somebody diagnosed a unit and gave a sales lead to the sales guy to go out there, they might get a spiff if we sold a unit on it or something. But, as far as having a unified commission structure where anything you do to that unit, if you put a capacitor on it, or if you do whatever, change filter, they're getting a commission off of it. If you can change them, if you can sell them a UV light to go in there for viruses or whatever, or something like that, then you get a commission. And I've just never done that because I've always viewed, the service guy is supposed to be the trusted link. That's kind of like going to the doctor. You're supposed to trust what this guy says to you. And I think it puts the service guy and the homeowner in the residential world at odds, because all of a sudden you go from being a trusted guy to somebody sitting there trying to figure out how to make money.
The last podcast we did was with the guy I was telling you about at lunch, the plumbing company.
Yeah.
And they do it your way as well.
Yeah.
But everyone else, it seems, is on that commission model. And it's like they're incentivized from the moment they walk in the home to do something. But I think for me, it captures a ton of loyalty when someone comes in. Like I actually told that owner the story. We had an issue at our house. They sent a plumbing guy out. The garbage disposal was doing something weird. And he looked at it and he's like, man, whoever installed this kitchen totally messed it up. Like it's just all wrong. It's not going to be done right unless you completely rip it out. And he said, how long do you think you're going to live here? Like, how long are we looking at patching this up? And I told him, I don't know, maybe a couple of years, 3 years maybe. He's like, well, if I were you, I wouldn't fix it. Here's what I would do. And it, ultimately went from probably $2,500 job to a $300 fix. Right. And if he was on commission, well, he would have tried to tell me,
Yeah, I see it. And, the bad thing is even that guy and us, it's putting us in a scenario where to remain competitive and to meet growth numbers and to meet sales numbers that we need to stay competitive in the market.
Because everyone else is doing it.
We're the only one that doesn't do it. And, of course, I track a lot of it, though. A big portion of it is we're one of the few non-private equity-owned companies in Huntsville. In the residential space. They're not chasing the commercial world that much. They do. There's some guys out there that chasing commercial side on the private equity world, but in the residential home services industry in general, the private equities are buying everything up. And so there's still a handful left over there, but for the most part, everything over there, all the big guys are all private equity. And so it's all about driving revenues and I keep thinking we'll outlast it because this always goes in cycles, 10 or 15 year cycles on that. And, most of the private equity backed companies will, after they get sold 7 or 8 times over the next, or maybe not that many, after they get sold 2 or 3 times, somebody end up holding the bag because they leverage up every time they do it. And then, a lot of them will go out of business over the next, there'll be some that'll get sold and end up with a permanent home and end up being a good thriving business for now and the foreseeable future. But a lot of them won't. A lot of these small companies get gobbled up, and if it's not the right private equity and it's got the wrong people running the private equity, whatever, they do go defunct. I've known a lot of them. They've gone belly up over the years. And, so we think at some point that market will open back up. We think we'll end up having opportunities there. But the question is, if you're going to be competitive in the market, how do you chase it? Can you keep living on this high moral ground of this is the way we do business and this way we've always done business? And sometimes that's that's the bad way to look at it, because just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean it's the way that works. And the buying public seems to be responding well to the commissioned.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Because it's like who would you want coming to your house commissioned? Obviously you'd want them to not being commissioned, but towards your point, well, if you want to provide growth for your team and for your company, it's like, that's
and the buying public, they're deciding with their dollars.
Yeah. I think maybe the bet has to be like, will your company stay around long enough to outlast the surface level sales? And eventually will people get smart to it and it'll be like, well, this company's never done that before.
But I don't know if they would get smart to it.
I wonder if there's any metrics you could run on a company that does commission-based sales for HVAC versus the way you do it, and say what's the retention rate in terms of when they call you back? Does it make sense?
Oh, well, yeah.
I wonder if that data exists.
But most of them are private, so it's hard to get all that information.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It does make me question. But the consumers vote with their pocketbook.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. There's lots of decisions that are made every day by consumers that I scratch my head at. And it just makes me kind of wonder, if we're in that place in the world where that's just the way the world is, and
Yeah.
and you're an outlier versus being a, the mainstream, what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And you got to remember in our industry too is everything's financed.
Yeah.
We still, and that's one reason Alabama Climate is kind of still, we're able to do what we do is because we still have a lot of long-term, we're servicing a lot of older people because it's an old company. And then you got their kids, and then you got the grandkids. So, we're servicing a lot of families. We're servicing 3 generations of those families. But then in that area is also a very transient area where you got all these people moving in and moving out all the time for the government jobs over there. So, you don't have that loyalty through those guys. And so you got to figure out how to get those markets. And, it's an interesting time because we get a service call or whatever. And a lot of times they'll call 3-4 people, turn in a service call, and whoever gets there first is who gets the business.
Yeah.
And, so you just burned up, because for us to roll a truck, you see these $59 service call things on the residential side, and for us to roll a truck to anywhere is $200. That's what it costs.
Yeah.
And so, they're coming into that environment.
Having to make a sale. They have to make a sale, otherwise they're going
to. If they don't sell something, there's no money to be made.
No.
$59 doesn't, by the time you figure your insurances, and running those trucks, that's what people don't understand. When you're running because first of all, you got your name plastered all over the sides of them. And so you're an automatic target. And I cannot think of a single accident that we've been in between either company in the last 5 to 10 years where we were not sued. And I'm talking about even a fender bender in a parking lot. They're going to retain a lawyer and they're going to sue you. And so, our auto insurance, it's like I have it's like every employee that works for me. Imagine having, we've got between the two companies about 100 vehicles. So imagine having 115-year-old or 16-year-old drivers, because that's about what our
I don't know if I can get 100 of those. Yeah.
It's like you're working that way. We just had that discussion.
Yeah. Maybe 12. And then I'll get the insurance premium. We're like, Michael had a point.
I told you 10 years ago not to do that. But, it literally, our truck, it runs, used to, it wasn't that bad. But, man, over the last several years.
That's incredible. Every time you get sued.
Every time.
Man.
Dude, we bumped into and it was our fault. We bumped into a back of a car one time at a red light. One of our drivers did, or it wasn't on a red light. It was down toward Houston, Mississippi. I can't remember where he was at. Maybe a stop sign. Something. Anyway, bumped into the back of him. Did not damage the car. And the guy gets out of the car, forgets to put it on park, and the car knocks him down. And it's an older guy, and it hurt him. And he sued us for all of his medical, because he ended up having to go to the hospital and all kind of stuff. And we got sued over that. And it's like, we got sued because you literally cannot put your car in park and get out of the door.
Did the insurance company settle? Yeah.
They settled.
Yeah.
And see, we fight with it because I fight with them and fight with them and fight with them about it. Is because, all right, it's just cheaper to, and a lot of times it's not a big settlement, but it's $10,000.
And then the insurance just goes up and up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
up and up
every time they settle
one.
something, it just increases your premium. And, it's forced us putting cameras in vehicles. We've started that in some of our trucks, already doing the forward and rear facing cameras. And
I hope Alabama picks up on some of the legislation that Georgia's recently passed for tort reform. Have you heard about some of that? Essentially, there's a big case here in Georgia where someone met in a CVS parking lot to do a Facebook deal. It's like Facebook Marketplace, let's meet and and the guy got shot and killed.
And they sued CVS.
And they paid out I forgot what it was, millions of dollars. And it's they didn't have anything to do with it, it's just crazy what you can get sued for. So anyway, Georgia passed tort reform to undo a lot of that because Georgia's the number one state in the entire country for litigation right now.
I have a friend that used to own a bunch of huddle houses, and they had one several years ago where 2 guys got in a fight in the parking lot of a huddle house, and they one of them got killed or got maimed real bad, and they weren't even customers at the huddle house, and he got sued, and it went on for that, and they ended up winning, but it went on for 3, 4, 5 years. In the legal fees, and it's just
it's wild.
And they were it's not even they had nothing to do with it. So I don't know. There's a lot, but it's the
But
same thing.
those expenses are not forefront of the thought of like, how am I paying $59 to have someone come out to my house right now?
Yeah, I mean, they're
Like, you
paying
can't.
$500 a month just for insurance, and then you got, vehicle, our vehicle,
Gas, payroll, everything. Yeah.
and then you got fuel, and then you got the vehicle purchase, and you got maintenance costs, and you got that guy you're paying an hourly wage to, and you're paying his health insurance, and then then you got a dispatcher in the office that you're having to pay, and you got a general manager that you're having to pay, and then you got an office you're paying for, and then you got lights you're paying for, and you got all these overheads that just stack up on top of there that, if you go out for $59, I mean, I don't know how you do it. I mean, you'd have to run a call.
You have to sell something. Yeah.
You have to run a call every 20 minutes. You have to do something every 20 minutes, and that's impossible.
Yeah.
And so it's all set up to sell, and I get it. And, and
it's working. So.
And it's working. And so, maybe I'm the dinosaur, and that's a big debate with, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, indifferent, anything. I've stayed in my corner.
Well, there's a way to still like maintain, I guess, integrity as long as you do great training and hold people accountable to not sell things they shouldn't sell. But there's that temptation. Like if you entered in, there's always going to be that temptation to say, hey, you get to make more money today if you go sell some more.
Well, you think about it. And the other problem is it creates some this is a side that people don't see, is it does create some disgruntledness within like service guys. Because a lot of times what happens is your least experienced guy that doesn't know how to fix anything is the guy that makes the most money. Because he doesn't know how to fix or diagnose anything, everything's a change out.
Yeah.
And so he's sitting there selling change outs, another guy's selling a $100 capacitor.
Yeah.
And, and so it creates some issues there. And so, it's really interesting because we were up there, we got called to look at we got called to price up replacing a unit at a house. And, ended up there was another company there at the same time. We're looking at this unit, and I'm like, that unit could be repaired. I mean, it was nothing that dramatically wrong with it. And this is the mentality in that industry. It's like that other guy that was there, he looked right at me and goes, dude, he goes, they called you and you're one of like 3 or 4 that got called. So if you repair that, you're going to get $150 repair, or they're already decided they're going to replace it. And they said, so you can get $150 repair, and then you may or may not ever get the phone call back to replace next year whenever they need to replace it. And you lost a $5,000 or a $10,000 sale out of it because you tried to do the right thing, because there's so little loyalty. There's some good things that are going on in the industry where they're signing, things we're looking at maybe doing, these like membership clubs or something where you get first on list, if you call in. We're exploring some of that stuff just because I think it could be beneficial, and it does create some loyalty with the consumer because they are paying you. But a lot of them though, it's a real deal. I mean, we've got people that will call us, but if we can't get there for a day, they will call somebody else. And there's no hard. I mean, that's just the.
Have you showed them the stuff we for Ferguson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Eagle Vision.
Yep, with the preventative maintenance program. Yeah, we've heard about that a couple of times. It basically guarantees the preventative maintenance appointment in the spring, and then in the fall.
Yep. We're doing some of that now. And what's crazy is we'll do that, and you still will go out, like you got a PM project with these folks where you're doing a twice a year or sometimes 3 times a year service on their house, and then you come back out there, and even though they're paying you to do that, you've got a new unit, and you have no idea where the unit came from. They didn't call, you didn't even get to price it. It's just really, that's been a hard thing learning, because in the commercial world, those guys, we're dealing with that customer weekly a lot of times, if not daily on some of them for stuff. And so you build these long lasting relationships where you deal.
Brand loyalty is not what it used to be. That's for sure.
And so, and then in the residential world, it's very much it's a hard thing, and there's all these programs, and I you follow people on Twitter and you read in the trade magazines, there's all this stuff people are doing trying to create that customer loyalty, and it's just really hard to create. And
I was talking to one of our partners recently, and he was saying that they've been in painting and power washing for like, I say almost 20 plus years.
Right.
And they had always gone back and painted, it was power washed this house every year. And like the guy developed a friendship with this customer at this house.
Yeah.
He shows up one day, and the whole house was repainted inside. And he's like, what about me? You didn't know, like, you didn't call us. And he's like, I didn't know you did that. And it's like, the name of his company is Painting and Power Washing. Yeah. But that's, some of the stuff that we do with email, marketing, or even just posting on organic social media. It's not really about like generating, lots of revenue. Just reminding people you exist.
Yeah,
just
that's
getting your name in front of them. I mean, especially email marketing. If someone opens their email and they see your name, and that's all they see,
even if they delete it, they saw your name.
Yeah, because they'll forget. They'll just move on.
And it's not the same. And it's gotten really. That's where you guys help. Because the whole thing is complicated. Because that's what I was talking to Chuck, the guy that started Alabama Climate. Because in the commercial world, we don't. Everything's relational, so you don't do much marketing. So that was a whole new thing 5 years ago when we bought Alabama Climate. Was, we got to spend money on marketing. How hard could that be? And then you start, and it's like, like 20 years ago, all you did was buy one Yellow Page ad, and you were done. And now here we are, and it's like we don't have a clue. It's like trying to figure. I'll tell you the best Chuck story ever though on the Yellow Page ads. This is great. So when he had Alabama Climate, he went around to all the competitors in Huntsville. I think it was back in the 90s. He was like, hey guys, we're all spending way too much money on these ads. We all need to revolt because of how much they're charging us for these things. We're going to buy the business card size ad, all of us. And so he went to all the bigger players and stuff, and everybody's like, that's how everybody does it. Chuck takes out the back cover. I don't know. It's and the whole world's changed with this because now, traditional TV, you start looking at TV advertising. What is traditional? I don't even watch TV hardly. That's what we were talking about at lunch. All this YouTube content we watch these days.
Yeah. YouTube ads are cheaper than TV ads, that's for sure.
And we don't even, I don't know that we have a regular show we watch at our house anymore. We watch our local news at night, and then, we'll watch football and stuff during football season, but just regular TV shows, we don't watch any of it. And then, so then you do radio. Well, nobody's listening to radio much anymore. Everybody's listening to Pandora or Spotify or
Apple Music
or XM. But I think XM's struggling these days because it's a subscription model that they can't walk around with, or I guess
exactly. You're already paying for it on your phone.
You already got the Spotify or Pandora free on your phone. It's hard to. So I don't know. The world of marketing has changed dramatically in the last decade and a half.
A little bit.
And and then you got all this Google stuff, and Google owns the world.
I'm trying.
They're working on it.
I don't like it, but as long as it makes our partners money, I'll keep on liking
industry.
it.
I mean, there's the Nest thermostat is that's a Google product.
Yeah,
they own it, and so I mean, they're trying to they want to collect information on how warm or how cold you like your house.
Yeah, and they want to turn it up or turn it down.
California, they do.
Yeah, I know.
You don't have any say so in California.
It's wild. It's unbelievable. I want to go back to the acquisition of Conditioned Air.
Yeah.
And hear more about that story, because I can't imagine what it was like you said he was like 70 at the time when he's. Yeah. So what was it like you and him because this was his baby. He started it, right?
Very difficult.
Yeah, tell me about that, because there must have been a push-pull. Like, what are you gonna?
It's awful. It was because but I learned real fast that I didn't, I never owned a business. So what I learned real time, I said 49% share is the same as 0
in terms of decision-making power. Yeah,
in terms of everything.
Yeah,
and it was really it was a rough half decade there. And I thought I'd really screwed up. We did not. We grew. Rolf, who was my partner, and after that worked there, he and I kind of just took it on our shoulders and made it grow, and then get chewed out because we were spending too much money, and it was just a very painful.
How is it painful? Be more specific. Do you have any stories?
Well, no, I tell you, because I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And,
you have ideas, and because looking back on life, your most productive years, I'm 52, and I think my most productive decade of in life, which you got to look forward to, is you got the most energy in your 20s, which are the most productive in your 40s. That's the most productive work decade of your life. Mm-hmm. Because you still have plenty of energy, but you also have a lot of more, or you should have more wisdom. And
I'm in my prime.
You're in your prime. That's what I'm saying. I just find that I think looking back on it, in your mature,
that's why I'm talking to you, trying to get that wisdom.
That's right. But you're mature enough, and there's all these things that go along with it. Something about your 40s just seem to be your most productive. And if you look at a lot of folks, I mean, there's always outliers. I mean, you're an outlier in a lot of ways. I mean, you've been very successful at a young age, and there's other guys. I mean, there's tons of outliers out there to do it. But most people, if you look at their professional careers, whether they're an entrepreneur or they're work somewhere or whatever, their big production years or their highest earning income years and everything are going to be in their 40s. And so I started really getting panicky, like I'm fixing to waste I'm ready to roll.
Yeah.
And I've got handcuffs on everywhere, and told my wife, I was like, man, we've messed this up. And so part of the deal was, so I had a really good job at Siemens making a whole lot of money. And I want to emphasize this too. So just made me think about it. But whether you're starting a business, buying a business, or just making a career move, people always focus in on how much money you're going to make. That's all that ever matters. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Every time I've ever taken a job, so like when I left Bedson and went to Siemens, I took a pretty big pay cut because I looked at Siemens and go, man, I got a huge runway there. I can do really well.
Mm.
And then when I left, and it took me about 3 years to get back to what I was making. And then I blew past it, and I was there for 7.5, 8 years. And so doing really well there, and, got all these little sales awards, and got to go to Hawaii a couple of times with Siemens on sales trips and all that kind of stuff. And so then when I came to do this deal, I rolled because the Siemens commissions you get quarterly, and I'd had some pretty good quarters, and I had a bunch of cash rolled up. And so I worked a deal where I gave a bunch of cash and then field finance the rest of it. And so any earnings that we made he was getting full distributions on those earnings. So it's kind of tough, but then in negotiating.
So how many years, I'm just curious now, because I think this is important because I've heard multiple stories of that acquisition process. Like, how many years before you actually got that profit?
5.
Yeah.
So I was in 5 years. And so in looking at the company at the time, I mean, it was a small company. How much can the company pay me? Which was nowhere near what I was making, or put the cash flow underwater. And so I went back to work with them owning this thing, and your name is on everything. So I got all this risk. And I'm back to what I was making at Bedson before I even went to Siemens.
Wow.
And so it was greater than 50% pay cut.
Wow.
And so, my wife worked, and so, we kind of just buckled the pants down. And then, so I got my first raise to myself after I'd been there 8 years, I think.
Wow.
Man. So I went almost a decade with no raise, and I was not making very significant money. And the company's growing, and we're generating a lot of cash. But that's a flip side that people got to learn, and especially in our industry, it's very capital intensive. So if you're going to grow, you're never going to have any money.
Yeah.
And your accountant's going to sit there and go, you made all this money, and you owe us many $100,000 in taxes, and you're sitting there scrambling. How do I owe all this? I'm not even making any money. And so, for a long time, only distributions that were ever taken out of we're S Corp. So the only distributions we were ever got were for tax distributions. That was it.
Exciting.
So, really, in the last 5 years is the first time I've ever taken money out of our company. I had ended up getting my pay up to what I was making at Siemens, and I felt like it was a fair market value for if I left the company. I didn't want to overpay myself. So if I left the company and went to work somewhere else, I was fair market value. So I'm not draining our company for some kind of exorbitant pay. And so the last 5 years, we finally had built up cash, and we kind of had leveled out. We weren't experiencing the kind of growth we were.
And by that time, you were 75%, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And now at 100, but but I'm still buying him out because.
Yeah, finance out.
55% is worth a lot more than the other 75%
I bet
purchased at this point. So
because and the work that you did to build the value of the company.
But he was
Yeah.
But, at the same time, it never happened without him. So
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good deal.
It's always interesting to hear that perspective from people.
I had the best. Now, my second partner, who was kind of like my partner, even though he didn't own any of it when I first got there, best partner you could ever ask.
What makes a good partner?
Well, you got to have a lot of respect for each other, and you can't be the same guy. He's a very operational guy. I'm more the money, managing our money guy. He's more the field operations stuff, and we've never fought. I mean, we've gotten mad at each other, but I mean, it's maybe a 15 minutes, 20 minutes being mad, and it's not a verbal mad. It's just frustrated mad.
Yeah.
But we just came to even though he was a 25% partner, I knew if it's ever going to work, I had to treat him like a 50% partner. And so if one of us disagreed on doing something, then we didn't do it. It's been like that the whole time. And I always enjoy it. Like because he's going to be there for we're 1 year in, so he'll be there at least another 4. I think he'll stay longer, but right now he's planning on staying another 4 years. And that's that got me a little nervous because I'm used to having, that sounding board and it's almost like a rudder. I mean, you're kind of both fighting each other to get to where you need to be. And when and then when times are tough, you also get somebody sit there that you can confide in, that's shouldering the same responsibilities as you, because our industry has a lot of tough moments in it. And so
if you could go back in time and talk to the you that was about to buy that company, what wisdom would you share with yourself?
Do it.
Yeah.
And I would have pushed faster to remove to buy out the other owner.
Yeah.
With it being the first company that you acquired, I thought it was interesting that you said you looked at multiple businesses in different industries.
Yeah.
What set Conditioned Air apart? Like what were the key metrics you looked at that you said, this is
could afford it.
This is the one we're going with.
That's factor.
I could afford it. Dude, I mean, that's what's so funny. Everybody wants these things. And there are some of these stories where these guys start a business because it's something they love, and this is what my life work is going to be. And you see it all the time. I'm not that guy. I never was that guy. I was just a guy looking for a way to make a living. And I didn't have a contractor. I had to get contracted to sit down. I'd never been a contractor, so I had to sit down and learn to take all these contractors tests to get licensed and all this stuff. And and then I had to learn. And to this day, if you got a problem with your air conditioner and you're looking to me to fix it, we got problems. So, I mean, I'm not the guy.
Man, I want you to look at our unit out back, man. Dang it.
So I wished I was. I know enough to be dangerous, but I mean, you pick up a lot just from being around it so much. And so, when I first got there, I took on more of a project management role on our construction side. It's kind of what I was doing, project management and estimating. And I still do a lot of estimating. I don't run jobs anymore. But and so you learn a lot just by being on those job sites and seeing what's going on. But
what about sales? Were you able to bring a lot of your sales?
Oh yeah, I mean, because our bit, it's all relational business, and so it's all about selling yourself. And our goal was always to make Conditioned Air a company that, even though we were a small company that looked big, kind of presented itself a little more professionally than a lot of our competitors, and appear to have more capability maybe than we do. That's kind of always our goal, the little company that wants to be big. And now we're a good mid-sized contractor. I mean, we're not for an Atlanta area contractor, we wouldn't be a very big contractor, but for Mississippi, we're in Northeast Mississippi. Man, it's a small market. We're a pretty good, decent sized player in that market.
What would you? So a lot of the people that we are talking with and our partners, especially the ones that are earlier on in their journey, are the ones doing sales primarily. Like, it's the owner. So what sales advice would you give someone that's in that place where they're having to balance sales but also running the company?
In the residential side of that world, I don't know, because I'm still learning that. In the commercial side of that world, so the hardest thing to do is acquire, especially in the service side. So we have a pretty good sized commercial service group. And so the hardest thing you can do is acquire a customer. And so, our goal is once we get that customer, is not make them spend money they're not already spending, but to sit there and look at the money they're already spending and figure out how they can spend it with us. And so we'll do things that don't fall within our normal scope of work for customers trying to acquire more of that business what's inside that customer. And because you developed a relationship.
So give me an example of that. Like, what does that look like?
Well, I just like we have franchise restaurants. We do so we've got a low temp. We do refrigeration. We do hot side, cold side, everything, and our air conditioning work in a restaurant. And we like multi-location chain type facilities. A lot of them are franchises, and so they'll have these franchise inspections and stuff. And so we're already doing all this kitchen work, and then it's like, man, we got an inspection coming, and we got to get this bathroom painted, and da da da. And so we'll paint the bathroom. We'll because most of these guys that work for us can do a lot of different things. And we actually had a painter on staff for a little while, and we're not doing as much of that now just because that hadn't been a drive. But I mean, and those kitchen tiles and the floors of the kitchen, you see those terracotta looking tiles you see everywhere in the kitchen, those things crack all the time. And they have a hard time getting people to come out and replace a single kitchen tile. I mean, an extremely hard time. So, I mean, they'll pay us whatever, come fix this tile. Like we had a guy one time, and it was at the time of year where, service is slow in the winter or slower. And it's like, he had a restaurant, and he had it was a chain restaurant, national chain, y'all all know, but he had a location. It was about an hour away from him. And somebody had a fence back behind the restaurant, a wooden fence, and somebody had hit it and knocked it down, tore the fence up. And he calls me and he's like, "Hey man, can y'all build a fence?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I mean technically we can," but I said, "Dude, Scott, it's going to be." I mean, at that time, I think it's probably been 8 years ago, 10 years, or $90 an hour for us to come over here. And it's an hour and a half drive from us. So I'm going to drive somebody over there, do this and all that. And he was like, "Look, I don't care what it costs." He said, "Can you build it?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "We can build it." He said, "This is what I know." He said, "For me, I'm going to have to go over there and spend time in that area to find somebody who can build a fence. So that's going to take me a day." I mean, he said, "My time's worth something." And then he goes, "And then I'm going to have to go over there and inspect it while he's building it to make sure it looks like I want it to look," which means I'm having to drive back over there for another day. And then, so he goes through all this stuff, and he was like, and I think we did it, and it was like an $8,000 deal for this. And this wasn't a big fence, but I mean, it's like $8,000 what it ended up being. He probably could have got the thing built for $2,500. And I told him that up front, and he was like,
but he trusted you.
Well, yeah, he was just like, "Dude, if I go mess with it with my time figured in," he said, "I'm looking," because he's a pretty big franchise. I mean, he had 30, 40 locations. Yeah. He was like, "Dude, it cost me just in my time going to mess," because he didn't have anybody that would kind of oversaw something like that. And so he was like, "Man, I'll end up with $10,000 or $12,000 tied, and just a lot of days burnt that I don't even want to be over there messing with the fence." And so, I don't know. We just find that if you can partner with the customer and you're always honest with them, and you mess up. I mean, because we've gotten called out for it. We've overcharged somebody, and we go back and look, and it's like, sure enough, our mistake. You owned up to it. It's like, we screwed that up. We overcharged you, and fix it. And then we've had scenarios too where we're trying to help them out. We're coming up with these solutions, and then it's like peeling an onion. And the next thing you know, you're into this thing, and you're like, "Oh my God, we thought was a $4,000 repair. Here we are. We're into this thing." We had it happen. They get into it like 15 grand. Had to go over hat in hand. We got the stuff fixed, but it was just a awful thing. I mean, and it's like, so I just finally went to him and said, "Look, if you will call, no overheads, nothing. This is our raw labor and our raw material cost. Y'all do a lot of work with us, and if you will cover me on that, we're good, and we'll go on to the next one." Because nobody was expecting it, and that's how I would want to be treated. Like our mechanic, the guys that work on our vehicles and stuff, they'll treat us like that sometimes, and that's how we want to treat people too. It's like, you're not trying to make a whole lot of money on every call. You're trying to, we're trying to do business with these people on the commercial side, especially for, decades. And so sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And, sometimes And you can't always win. Sometimes you got to take one for the customer, especially if it's a good customer. If they spend a lot of money with you and never mess with you on your bills or when they pay like clockwork, I mean, it's hard to sit there and go, oh, sorry, we missed that by 20 grand.
Yeah.
We'll just, sorry, you got to pay that. No, you just sit there and, you go over and print out your costs and say, this is where I'm at. This is our raw cost, no overheads, nothing. Say, can you cover that? And, he was still upset about it. And he was like, but that's fair. I'll do that.
Yeah, I feel like a theme that I've heard on the last 2 episodes is like when it comes to building a business, it's not thinking the short term. It's not thinking about the immediate or what am I going to make on this job. It's looking way out into the future and saying like, how is this going to impact us in the years to come? And that really seems to be what makes a huge difference.
And in commercial construction, it really is because your name is everything in commercial construction. Reputation. That's how you get work. Yeah. It takes you, and to get big work takes longer because you got to work your way up to where you're completing lots of projects of different sizes and doing good quality work on them and not going back and begging for money and all that kind of stuff. And so, you take the good with the bad. Some jobs are a home run. Some jobs you're like, crap, lost money on that one. And, but you keep going. I mean, you can't win on, you can't, if you find somebody in this business that says they make money on everything they do, either they're ripping people off or they're lying.
Yeah.
Because it's not possible. You're always going to have losses. Now, in that residential with these new models and stuff that these people are doing, I don't know, maybe you do make money every time. I don't know that it's a good view for the customer.
Yeah, or the employee. Because, are the best employees going to stay with you if they have to sell people things that they don't want to? Like the other guy we're talking to, Mike, which you should meet Mike sometime, but he was talking about in those commission-based models, it's not just that they have the opportunity to make more, but now their overhead is less because you're making less per hour because you're making commission.
Well, and
so you're forced to.
Think about it. So like with us, which is always a challenge. So we if you work for us, we're working, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
Which is unusual in the residential air conditioning business. And it's been very challenging. But that was my commitment. That's the way I've always treated our commercial side. And so going into it, that's the way I wanted to treat. And maybe that's naive on my part, but we've done it so far. Is, hey, you're going to work for us. You get a paycheck every week of the year. Well, in that commission world like that, you're not getting paid. And because it's basically, when they don't have any work, you go home.
Yeah.
And so now talking people into looking at it, and saying, a lot of them are making the same money.
Yeah.
Now they're, it's condensed. So, they're getting these big paychecks in June and July, but the problem is they're not getting a paycheck in December.
Yeah.
And so they get this huge paycheck, and that's what we hear. We'll have people quit and they'll go do that. And they're like, oh man,
I was going to ask if you've lost people.
Not too bad, but we have. Or the big thing that'll happen is we typically don't have people. We don't have a lot of turnover, but Alabama climate and the residential side, we've had more turnover than we've ever had in the commercial side. But we've stopped that over the last couple of years. And Chris is he'll let people go from time to time trying to build his team out like he wants them. But what you'll have is somebody let go or something, they'll go to one of our competitors and then they'll call everybody. And they'll start telling them how much money you could make doing this and and then it never fails. Those people start calling us back, December and January, like, hey, y'all hire, and because you don't make any money in the winter, and that's always a challenge, and it's just and you see it even in the commercial service world, you see that because they're only paid time on job, and a lot of those large, regional commercial service companies. So if they don't have anything to go to that day, then they don't get paid. And so, even though their hourly rate may be, 50 or 20% more than what we're paying hourly, it's not a guaranteed thing. And we have people that do take off without pay. I got some guys that hunt a lot, and they don't care. They're going to take off during certain times of year to go hunting, paid or not paid. And so you do get some of that, but if you want to work and you need a 40-hour paycheck, then if you work for us, that's just a guaranteed thing to do. And even when we don't have the work to support it, that's just the way we've always done it. And,
well, tell me more about that at Conditioned Air specifically. We have a lot of partners over the last few years, especially, that have come to us primarily just to get more people to apply. Like if their limiting factor in their growth is people.
was always.
And you know what I tell them? I say, like, listen, we can help an application come in. We can get an application in the door, but keeping them is a whole nother thing, right? Building a good culture, a good team. So how have you done that successfully at Conditioned Air? How have you gotten people to stay around?
You give them, because we're kind of, and I don't know in other parts of the country. In our area, we're a little bit of an anomaly because we've got a good vacation package. They can get up. I can't remember now. I think it's either 4 or 5 weeks PTO time you can get up to, which in construction is really unheard of.
Like with longevity,
huh?
Like every year,
they every. I think we got after a year you get some, then after 2 years you get another week, and then 5 years you get a week, and then 10 years you get a week or something like that.
Gotcha.
And then we do 401k, and we match. I think it's 5% on 401k, and then health benefits, and then I don't know. We treat it, and I get frustrated because I listen to a lot of this stuff, and you see these TikTok, which I don't do TikTok, but I used to.
You used to?
You used to.
Oh, wow.
It's a time suck.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I look at, I like, that's not a very effective use of time. Sit down for 1 minute and 3 hours later.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They have everything I didn't know I needed to see on one spot.
You got an algorithm figured out for you.
So, but you see all the stuff where these people are talking about their jobs or whatever, and they're like, the biggest lie anybody ever told you was a company thinking your family and all that. And I don't know. We take it a little different than that. I believe it. Now, whether everybody works, you got 90 people. Is there people in there that may not feel that way? I'm sure. But mentality wise, we try to think that way, because like if we get somebody that has a serious health issue or something like that, then we're not what that the vacation typically, whatever those PTO days, all that, we typically throw that out the window, and it's like we start trying to figure out how to help this person get through whatever they're going through, and then we navigate. And, we've had some that have had to leave the company over the years, but it was not a decision like where I just come in and go, all right, man, sorry for your luck, sorry you got sick. It's a planned progression in over many, many months of, because it's obvious this person's never going to come back to work. And so, but it's helping them and their family work their way through that financially, and, how do they preserve themselves long term? It's not just a brutal decision, because the other flip side is too, a lot of times in that scenario, those people, if you do that, they're losing their health insurance too, which is the time they need it.
Yeah.
And because they can't afford the COBRA, if you let somebody go when you're sick. And then the flip side is like on workers' comp stuff, we've done it a couple of times and for specific reasons why, but we've rarely ever turned wages over to workers' comp. And in our industry, people get hurt, unfortunately. I mean, it's just part of our business. And most of the time we don't have serious injuries, but we do have some injuries, here and there. And so we don't, if they go on workers' comp leave, they're going to get 66 2/3% of their pay or something like that. And I don't know how many people y'all know, but I don't know many people that can just all of a sudden take a 40% pay cut in their life and make their car payment, their house payment, and their whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Most people aren't in that scenario. And so, that's what I always tell our guys. I'm like, we need to pay them, and we need to get them on light duty in our office as fast as possible, helping, because you want them to stay engaged. The longer they're isolated by themselves, the less they feel like they're part of it, even if you're paying them. So you try to get them back in the building, whether it's answering the phone or whatever, as fast as possible, even if it's just for a couple of days a week if they're out for something. And then you keep them paid, because if you don't, they come back and they've been living on that, and all of a sudden they're mad because they're behind on car payment and stuff you don't even know about, but they're maybe behind on the car payment, thinking might get a car repossessed, or they may be behind on the rent or their house payment or whatever it is. They've gotten themselves, because of an injury, have gotten in a financial crisis. And so then you got a distracted employee when he comes back, and chances are, my experience is when that happens, you lose the employee.
Yeah.
And so we try to, I don't know. I think that's we just don't have a lot of turnover. We have a core group of people that have been there long. We got we got people who've been there longer than I have, by 10 years.
Wow.
And like Rolf, he's been there since 91. He's like employee number 3. And
so what's the primary motivation? Why do you think they stay? Like what's the reason?
I think it was Freedom Fair. Honestly, I mean, is there things that I wish we could do to make us more like a Harbinger or something? Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool. But at the end of the day, we're still a construction type company, service type company. And so I think we can stack ourselves up against and look at like a tech company or something like that. It's like, man, we can't do all that. No. But I think when you stack us up against our competitors, I think the way they're treated, the way the benefits, the vacation, everything all rolled together, the way everything works, I think we're a better place to work. I think that's what it comes down to. And so if you've selected to do what we do for a living, I think we're a better place to work than most of our competitors.
So why, this may be more of a philosophical question, but why have you chosen to operate your business and treat people the way that you've decided that you're going to treat people? What's the motivation? What made you that way?
Because I like to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
I like to be able to sleep. I don't know. I think it's just basic human decency.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you do what you can. If I'm going to tell you you're on my team, and then as soon as something happens, you're not on my team anymore, were you ever on my team? And hopefully most people that work for me never have to figure out if they're on the team or not. That's the goal. And that's the flip side. It's, a lot of people go, oh, I don't know how you can afford to do that. I'm like, it's not like we got 20 people that are in this scenario all the time.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with these on, if you got 1 or 2 cases at a time, to do the right thing is not significant in the operation of our company.
And everyone sees it.
Yeah,
and if they see you not take care of it, sends a very clear message.
I never even thought so. Chris, what was funny, we hired a guy over in Alabama when we first went over there, and we talked this guy into leaving his job. He's working for a competitor, and he came to work for us. And literally, like the 3rd week he worked for us, I forget what he had. He had something like a kidney something go on. Anyway, he ended up in the hospital for like 2 weeks. He's out of work for like 6, and he's been working for us for literally 2 months. And Chris like, what do we do? I said, well, do you want to keep him? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, you better pay him. Because I said, man, that changed jobs. He ain't got no vacation time. He didn't have anything. I said, dude, if he's going to be out for close to 2 months, he's going to be in bad financial situation when he gets out of there. I mean, you just can't do that. And so we did. I never really even thought that much about it. I just thought, that was in that scenario, that was almost a selfish one on my part. It was like, we really need this guy because he's a good service tech. And then it turned into, he became very loyal. He's still, he's with us now still. And he's been there 6 or 7 years. And,
wow.
And dude, he tells all
6 or 7 years paid for that 2 months, right? Easy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and well,
because the cost of turnover is
what pays for it is when he tells young guys that grass ain't greener.
Yeah,
and so we call him a boomerang employee because we do get those a lot, especially with young guys. The grass is greener. Somebody comes in and offers a too good to be true package. We try to tell them it's a too good to be true, and then they leave, and then a year later we got them back. And what we find is when they come back the second time, it's much stickier. They stay much longer. And we appreciate, I mean, it's I don't know, I appreciate the guys, and it's always hard too. There's a lot of things that are hard in juggling because especially when you're hiring guys in their 20s, which we love guys in their 20s. But, I remember back when I was a kid is you go, I remember having a girlfriend or something for, go out with this girl for 6 months when you're 18 years old. And that's it's a long time. Feels like an eternity, like, oh man, we're in love or whatever. And 6 months is a blink of an eye at 52. And so, I remember back thinking about jobs I had in college or jobs I had in high school, things like that. And I have vivid memories of those jobs. I feel like I worked there forever. And most of those people probably don't remember me because I was only there for 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
summer job or something like that. And I had that job seemed like I worked there for years and it was 2 or 3 months. And so, you know, I think you have to keep that in mind when dealing with the guys in their late teens, early 20s when you're hiring them. And because they do get a little bit of experience and they can't, because they're usually at a pay point where they're not at the top of the ladder at that age. And so you have to keep them engaged. And you have to keep them enough raises to keep them coming because they can all those guys, when they've been there with you for a couple of years, they can all leave. Every one of them can find a job making $1, $2 an hour more. And so what you have to do is keep enough guys in front of them that are making really good money that they sit there and go, there is a path to get there. And, we used to say we'd have a top out pay. And these days I'm like, I don't even say it anymore because the world's changed so much. We're paying monies now for hourly rates that I never thought I would see. And so I don't even say it anymore because I'm like, I think it's going to go up substantially more over the next 15 years. And be interesting to see. But
do you have people right now at the top or the upper end of the company that started out entry level?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
Huh?
Was Chris entry level?
Chris,
that's a great story. We need to get Chris on the podcast.
Yeah, Chris only came in, I think he may have been 21. He's 31 now.
Wow. Now he's running a company.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing. None of them want to move. That's the problem. Most people don't, most of our guys have these extreme family dynamics where they all live close to their families, and I understand it. They don't want to move away from their families and moms and dads. And all
did having Chris on the team and how long he had been with you play a role in your decision to purchase Alabama Climate Control? Was it did it help knowing that you had a guy that you were ultimately was willing to move? He was on your team.
Yes,
and it was plug and play.
Yes and no. Because at the time Chris was just running his little service group he had in Florence. And so I didn't know if he would ever run that over there because he was real back and forth about whether he wanted to be a manager. Me and him talked a lot about it, and he was like, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if I want to do it. Because when I bought it, I'd brought in a guy that I used to work with at Siemens. It was a general manager for Siemens. It was retired, and he lived in Birmingham, and so I talked him into come work with us and kind of give me somebody that I trusted and knew over there. And he kind of got the ship righted and got us going in the right direction. And, and then he mentored Chris a lot over those couple of years. And because he would meet with Chris weekly and all that. So, and I think it just kind of happened. And when Lee said finally, hey, I'm really retiring, I'm done. Then it was about a year ahead of where we were hoping he would stay till, because Chris and I had been talking about it. And we're like, hey, Lee going to go probably in a year. And then Lee's like, I'm going now. and I was like, Chris, your timeline just got moved up by about 12 months. But he jumped in and took over. And
that's awesome.
And, he's had his growing pains and he gets mad at himself. And, we had some issues last year on some billings that were causing us some problems. We couldn't figure out where our money was going, and we were misbilling in our software. And so anyway, we found it, and it was a several $100,000 problem, but Chris was just tore up, and I was excited. And he was like, what is wrong? I'm like, we know what it is. We can fix that.
Yeah.
I said, we can't be mad. I mean, that money's gone. We can't be mad about the money we didn't make because we weren't billing right. I said, now that we know where the solution is, we're going to make that money on everything from now on. And, he was all tore up, but he cares. I mean, and so that's a big thing. And, I don't even have to get on to him. He's harder on himself than I would ever be. So
that's awesome.
I have to encourage him more than anything because he gets so beat up on himself. But,
wow.
Yeah. And now you're kind of moved on to another phase, right? With your son.
I got my oldest son. Well, both of them actually. I got a high school senior that works after school for us. But then my oldest son, he's going to junior college right now, and then he's still working. He's probably working 30 hours a week, I guess, and going to school. And so I don't know if he'll ever. We'll see. I'll see where he goes in college. I don't know that that's his calling. He really likes working, and he's worked in our service department up until the last year. And now he's been in our construction. He's working on a data center right now at Ole Miss, and
Oh, wow.
so he's learning a lot. And
So he runs a job? Like he runs the project?
no,
No?
he's only 19.
Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
He's a hand,
Gotcha.
but I never see him. I mean, that's the kind of the deal. It's like he got to find his own way with it, because I hope he turns into running the job. I'd like to see that in the next 4 or 5 years, but
It's up to him to prove it.
as long as the guys keep bragging on his work ethic, I'm good.
Hmm.
And he seems to be he wants to be there. He wants to do it. Problem is I got to cross train him in a whole bunch of different trades.
Was that ever a goal as a business owner? Like, did you hope
That
that it
was
would turn
one of the-
into a family?
I didn't think about it when we were talking about it earlier, but that was really one of the big reasons for doing it, is because when we started having kids, I was like, that's one of the drivers behind me saying I need to get out and do something, because I was doing really well, but it was like, it's so hard to find a profession that you can, especially in Mississippi, small town Mississippi. And, I sit there and look at all these people that I knew that had done well in life. A lot of them moved away. Most of them, a lot of people here in Atlanta from our area. I mean, people in Nashville, people out in Texas. And it's like, I was like, I really like, and they moved because of opportunity to make money. And so if you're going to work for somebody where I live and make the kind of money I was wanting to make, it's hard to do. And I said, man, it's really hard to make a good living working for somebody else. So I bought this because I had some cousins that had a contracting company down in South Mississippi and watched that as a family entity, and they had all, and I was like, maybe I can emulate that, and you could go create a multi-generational company. But that was a very big incentive, was having something for the kids, something to pass along for my kids to do. Now whether they take it and run with it, we'll see. They both seem very interested. Both have different talents, so they could be very complementary inside the business. I kind of can see how I can mold it all, make it where they work well together and have different responsibilities in their silos of what they're good at. And but it's going to be an interesting next 8 or 10 years to see on that. I hope. Because if not, I got to figure out what to do with this money. It's a lot easier to let them take it than me have to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of private equity, so I don't really want to sell to one of them.
I feel like your story ought to be incentivizing to them.
Huh?
I feel like your story would be incentivizing to them.
Oh, absolutely.
I
think they get it.
Yeah, starting it yourself or going and buying something and not making money really for 5 years. I mean, they have something.
It's hard. You started the company. It's hard.
It's not.
I mean, now it's
easy.
easier. But you said you didn't take vacations. I still made myself take vacations because I had to remember why we were doing it. That's what I told you at lunch. It's like I always took a week off because I was like, I had to remember, why am I doing this every day?
Yeah.
Because like I said, this is not an industry where anybody, I think, wakes up and goes, hey, I want to do air conditioning, or I want to do electrical work. I just don't think that's you're chasing opportunities is all you do. I mean, that's the way I view entrepreneurship. You're looking for opportunities, not for everybody I've ever known did something they loved and turned it into a business, ended up being a job. There's very few people that do something they love, turn it into a business, and they're like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. Because at some point it always turns into a job. So take the love out of it and just find what you're good at, find an opportunity and go chase it. Because they're all the same. Every business is the same. It's all about managing cash flow and people. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing this business, you're doing different people, but you're still managing
people business. Yeah.
People, and you're managing cash flow. And so if you can learn how to manage people and manage cash flow, you can go do anything.
Yeah.
And because all you're doing is hiring the right people. Hire people smarter than you.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever take anything off the table as far as like if we're looking, somebody approaches us with something. We've had several opportunities at other things and didn't pursue them, or we may have pursued them, but not ever seriously. Didn't find an opportunity that fit us. But we don't put it in that confine of it's got to be a contracting business. We would definitely chase other things.
So along this journey, you said you took vacations. Like I said, we have a core value that I think I told you a little bit about called live intentionally.
Mhm.
It's this idea that we are called to be good stewards of more than just our job, but
Right.
of our family and our friends and our bodies and our souls. And like, it's not enough to win in one area. You can win at one thing, but you're losing at the others. You're not really winning. So yeah, I think the first 5, 6, maybe 7 years of the launching of Harbinger, I did not steward those things well. And then once it became a core, I was, being very serious. Like, I'm going to actually do this well and actually like steward all these pieces, and win in all areas of life, not just
It's
in
hard.
business. And I think it's a struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of people growing their business. So I'm curious, how did you maintain? Because obviously your kids are still in the business. They like you. I've heard you talk about your wife. I think she likes you, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you made it this far, and you're like, that's something to celebrate, because honestly, I know a ton of business owners who have built an incredible business, but their kids don't want anything to do with them. I know a lot of people who build an incredible business, but they're not able to really enjoy it because their health is in the garbage, right? So how have you been able to balance those things well?
I think it's just a priority thing. There's always something to do within a business. Always. When you go home on Friday afternoon, there's stuff that needs to be done Monday morning that you could do on Friday afternoon, or you could do on Sunday afternoon, or you could do on Saturday, or whenever you're going to do it. But I think you just have to realize you're never going to catch up. I mean, you're never going to get everything done ever. And so I think you just got to draw your line in the sand. And weekends were always, now during the week, we would work a lot of hours early on. I usually, back at the beginning, Rolf and I would be there 6, because Phil was one of these that he liked to be there at 5:15 in the morning. And I was like, I can't do that. But so we would get there at 6, and we would stay, though. Company would close down at 4, and Phil would leave at 4. But usually Rolf and I were up there, estimating jobs or doing whatever. We'd be up at 6:30 a lot of times, 7. And so that went on for a long time. But then most of the times, Friday afternoon, 3:30 or 4, we called it a day. And so I think, and if kids had something during the week, I always made sure I went. I'd make it work. I'd go. It didn't matter. And then, on the weekends, I tried to avoid, sometimes I would work on Sunday afternoons, depending on if we had something big going on the next week. But a lot of times rarely I would do anything on the weekends. I would stay always with the wife and kids on the weekends.
That's awesome.
Whether we'd be on a boat or doing something, but we always prioritize weekend family. And then, and then vacations have always been a priority and still are. I mean, we still do. They've gotten bigger. We go on a lot cooler trips than we used to, but that's just always been an important time with vacations. And it's kind of cool now because this will be my 3rd year where my vacation in the summer is almost 2 weeks, and so
it's awesome.
5 years ago I couldn't do that, and now it's gotten to a point where they just assume I'm not there.
Yes.
It's
nice.
They don't want me around.
Yeah.
And but that, and I think the other part of it is you have to talk about the business with your kids too. I mean, if you want your kids to be in that business, because I've got friends that have businesses that are way more successful than me and big, large organizations. They're like, I don't want my kids doing this. I'm like, but you're making, huge money, and why would you've seen what it took to get it here? Why would you not want your kids to do this? Why do you want them to go back and work their way? I don't understand it. I don't. I'm just like, kids are going to be kids and they're going to do whatever they're attracted to in life. But I still go back to, I never chased something to make a living at it for the love of it. I chased it to how can I make the best living? Even when I was working for Siemens, it's like, I didn't care anything about building controls. I mean, that's not a passion in life, building controls. I just saw it as a great opportunity to make a living. And I think we live kind of in a touchy-feely world these days where it's all about your feelings. Everybody wants to chase their passions and their loves and all. I'm like, sometimes you just gotta
You got commitments.
Sometimes you just got to figure out can I make $1 doing this right here? That, I think I could do that and just go do it. Because I'm sure, it's like the guys mowing yards. There's nobody out there I've got some friends that have some lawn mowing services do extremely well. But I mean, it's not like they woke up. I just love mowing grass every day.
Yeah.
No, they woke up and they go, I can make money mowing this grass every day.
And that's deeply meaningful. If it means, now I can, like for me, like when I first started at Harbinger, it's like with when we had our first kid, it's like I have a new motivation, a new level of excitement and energy, whether it was for that particular thing I was doing or not. It's because I had to provide, I had to make it work. Yeah.
The business or the job or whatever you're doing, it's about creating an income stream to provide for your family and to anything you do have passion about or want to do to fund that.
I think that should go viral on TikTok. We should cut that up,
What?
like
Do it.
No. I won't ever see it. You got to put it on Reels. I do get Reels.
we got
Somebody can send me Reels. I can't even open a TikTok though.
Yeah.
They're kind of dirty with theirs because like you have to download an app.
Yeah,
a lot of that stuff people will send you. It'll open up in a browser, but TikTok, no, you got to download. So
never done it.
I just had to delete them.
Yeah.
Because I can't open.
I just have someone else show them to me. Like, yeah, I've never downloaded TikTok.
I've never had it.
No.
I've never had it either.
Not, and so it should be banned. Just for all the wrong reasons. This scenario where they keep saying they're going to ban TikTok. For the real reason should be because of the destruction of productivity. Because cell phones in general have destroyed productivity in America anyway.
Yeah.
I see it on our jobs. We talk about it all the time at work.
Yeah.
Because we look at used to early on, we really wanted a job, a construction job. We could bid that work and we could really get aggressive. We could take our estimate and we could usually say, let's shave 10% of the labor out. And we could still execute the job and make money at it.
Yeah.
We hadn't had a job when we struggled to hit labor targets on job without shaving now. And I think you lose, and you put all that. I know everybody can be, you got to have a cell phone policy. You can't. Okay.
Good luck enforcing it.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And so they're always going to sneak a cell phone.
I went by a restaurant last week to go pick up some food to take home, and I was sitting there waiting to get it, and I looked over and I saw, I not exaggerating, probably 5 different people doing this number.
Yeah.
It was before it got busy, and I'm just like calculating is there not something to clean?
20% on our labor.
Yeah.
I read an article that the cell phone is basically the new sneeze. So if you sneeze, the next people close to you, or I'm sorry, yawn, not sneeze. So if you yawn, it tends to go to the next person, all of a sudden everyone's yawning like that. So they said that if you're standing in a circle of friends and if you pull out your phone and if you just look around, it'll just go around the circle. Everyone pulls out their phone and looks at it because they see someone doing it. Yep. Or just because someone's doing it, it's like, oh, that must be what we're doing now. Pull out the phone, look at it. And if you do it in front of a group of 4 or 5 friends, everyone will be looking at their phone within 2 to 3 minutes if you do it.
I really do. I think we lose. I think it costs us 15 to 20% productivity because of phones. And hey, I'm not going to, that's why I delete apps is because it's
exactly.
I'm not immune to it either.
The algorithm is smart, figures out what you like and feeds you more of it.
I deleted a bunch of apps from my phone because I felt like my family was losing 15 to 20% productivity from me. I noticed it. All of a sudden, I would open up something, be watching videos, read an article, then I'm scrolling. All of a sudden, it's 2 hours later. And it's just like I know you were joking about it earlier, but I noticed that actually happening in my personal life. And I'm just like, holy cow, it's crazy,
TikTok, you get to the house at night and you're sitting there and you're like, after you watch the news, you're like, and it's like, that's like 6 o'clock and you're like, oh crap, it's bedtime. 9:30, 10 o'clock, and been sitting there scrolling. It's like, but they continually.
And that's why those social advertising platforms are so effective because everyone's glued to it. And then that platform.
Eventually we get to the end of it, but it never ends.
It's never ending because there's a monetary incentive because as long as the eyeballs keep coming back, then we can keep on selling ads to people who want to buy the things that we want to sell.
It's a productivity killer though.
It is, yeah.
It's a major problem across everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters what industry you're in.
It's true.
Now, I think it could affect in like a business like yours where everybody's in an office. And, it's hard to judge. I mean, you can judge productivity, but you can't. It's harder to, I think it may not be because I don't know enough about the way y'all judge everything. But, like in our business, if I go to the job site and that conduit and wire's not in there or there's not any duct work in there, you can sit there and tell in a hot minute that nothing went on here today.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I was here yesterday and there is absolutely nothing has been done. So it's really easy to judge the productivity on that side of it. And yours, or in the office side, and we got office workers too. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's as easy to judge what productivity you're losing.
Yeah, I'm sure for a lot of companies, that's probably a challenge. I don't feel like it is for us because everyone's so motivated.
Everybody's so motivated.
Yeah.
Nobody watches TikTok.
I'm sure there are, for educational purposes. We gotta keep up with the trends, market research, But there's a time tracking, so we track every single action. Like you have to select what are we clocking our hours in on?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you have to select a client, and then you have to select the project type. So if it's social media, and then there's subtasks under that. So I mean, I'm sure there's some R&D time that's scrolling time.
General admin.
Yeah, there is a lot of general admin time, so maybe that's it. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just that's pretty neat. You can do that, but I don't know. It's not something you can't battle it. You can encourage, put pressures up on people to get things done. But I mean, it's out of the bag now. I mean, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. I mean, it's just
there's not.
And it's not going to get better.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it'll get better. I feel like there's
AI and the robots are going to take over.
Well, there's also there's a big trend towards actually getting rid of social media, especially in a younger generation. There's actually dumb phones that are coming out. They're actually pretty expensive for a dumb phone. Literally, you're paying a lot of money for a phone that pretty much has a calculator and can text and call.
We did it.
Yeah, y'all did it?
For my daughter, the Gab phone. It was it looks like it's a droid. It looked like a droid. It was a droid. And it ultimately allowed her to text message us, make phone calls with us. So if we were at the Friday night high school football game or she's with her friends, she could get a hold of us. It had the Bible app. It had the calculator. But you could not get to the Google Play Store and actually download other apps that people would be utilizing. And there's no internet, so there's no browser. But yeah, it was...
I've seen more
it worked.
Of not only that, for a younger person, but I've seen people that are actually choosing to uninstall everything. My wife literally has asked for, I want a dumb phone. I'm done with this. She didn't want it.
I would have no problem going back to a flip phone.
Yeah.
I would love a flip phone.
It reminds back when I was a sales guy, I'm enough older than you that this is going to sound crazy to you, but, we communicate. I didn't have email. I mean,
no way.
There's no email.
Yeah. So,
it
wasn't around for email.
It was fax machine. And I did have a cell phone early in my career. But
was it hooked up to your car to a generator?
It's on my car. It was mounted in the car.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was, if you only got 60 minutes a month of usage, and anything
sell quick.
And anything outside of 30 miles of wherever you lived, you were in roaming. Wow. And so, if you got outside your base area, I mean, and you were on roam, I mean, it's charging you $3 a minute or something to use it.
I do understand what roaming means. Barely understand what that means.
But so for years, man, I would stop at payphones, which you don't even have anymore, but call the office, and as soon as I had a voicemail, I could check it. And in my previous job, other than that, I call and I had a secretary there, and she'd I'd call right before lunch in the mornings, and I'd call at 3, and I'd stop, find one in the afternoons, and call at 3 in the afternoon, get my messages. And then I had a fax machine at the house that they would fax the stuff over to. And then, and it's amazing. We got just as much done as we do now. And the problem now, I say that, but the problem now is in the construction world, everything's gotten in a hurry. They're trying to build everything fast. And I go back to that, what's the NBC show where American Dream Home, where they built a house in 7 days. Ever since that show was on TV, everybody's like, oh, we got to build a building in a week. I mean, it's just turned in. And so quality on construction sites is way down because you can't do it. Everybody wants it cheap and everybody wants it fast. And so there's no room for quality anymore. So, I mean, we still are at a higher quality than a lot, but I mean, we're nowhere. And I don't think you talk to any of my competitors, nobody's turning the quality of work that we used to turn out 10 years ago. Because everybody keeps condensing these construction schedules. Stuff that used to be a 12-month project you're trying to do in 5 to 6 months now. And it's just like, and something's got to give. You can't. And then what's crazy is since COVID, they're still trying to compress construction schedules, and there's a lot of equipment you can't get, that may have like we're doing a data center right now that my son's working on, and we got stuff that they're trying to finish that job in the next couple of months, and it's like we got like MDP, our switchgear and stuff is not even going to be in until like July, so there's no way to even power up the building. And it's been ordered for 2 years. It's like,
It's wild. I would not have thought that would still be going on.
Oh, it's crazy. So they're taking delivery. Wednesday of the generators on that job. I forget how big they are. Anyway, they're huge. One generator per 18-wheeler, and those generators have been on order since what was it? November of 23. We're taking delivery tomorrow. And then they tried to charge us a tariff charge last week. Yeah. They tried to charge us $30,000 a generator tariff. And it's like, hey, really? You're telling me those generators just came over on the boat today?
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. We refused. We did not pay the tariff.
Wow.
But but anyway, they keep condensing these construction schedules, and you can't even get the buildings running because you can't get all the stuff in. So I don't know why that is, but and they're just all adamant, and owners are all adamant. We got to build it in like 4 months, or 5 months, and the stuff that should be taking a year. And if you give them a year, the price wouldn't be much different. But man, your quality of work would be so much better. I mean, you can only do stuff so fast. And if it's like if you do something in a hurry at your house, how does it turn out?
It's true.
But
well, one other thing I want to ask you about. So when people call you, and I thank you for taking calls for Harbinger. It's like, what do you tell them?
You were asking me about company culture. My experience over here, as I think y'all got one of the coolest companies. I got to come over that one Wednesday. Was it a Wednesday I came over? And y'all and I think I was there just on an abnormal day because you had the guys from overseas and everything were all zoomed in and everything. And it was just kind of a neat, just the culture of the company is one of the more unique cultures I've ever seen. And then, kind of the interesting thing, we've gone down the path with Alabama Climate because that's where we use you guys. And so at Alabama Climate, we had been, y'all were our third marketing company in 3 years. And we've been with y'all for 2 years now and very happy. One of them was just ripping us off and wasn't doing anything. The one that we had, I think, when y'all took us over. Yeah. And then the other one, though, we really liked, but then they got bought out by private equity, and private equity does what private equity does and destroyed that company. And so they started out great, and then, 6 months into it, they got bought out, and then everybody we dealt with went away, and it was like no consistency. Nothing was getting done, no regular meetings, anything. And then we found you guys, and y'all have good core values, enjoyed meeting you, like the feel of the company. Been dealing with the same people since day one, except for Seth. I ain't seen Seth today.
He's here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's avoiding me. But, he kind of abandoned us. But other than him, yeah, I know. And he still hung on with us there for a while, even after he got promoted. But and then you listen to our concerns, and I think we've had growing pains with you guys and, trying to figure out, but it's like everything is addressed, everything, and we're seeing tangible results. It's like I told you the other day, I had talked to you, but I told Sal the other day, I just giving him a comment, I compliment because I like to beat up on him. But, it was like I was in the office in Huntsville, and they, something came up, and one of the girls in there said something about it, and another one said, "Yeah, I've had 4 or 5 like that lately." And it was like people searching specifically for our competitors' names, and we had ads popping up on, and it wasn't just one; it was multiple competitor names they were searching for over different calls, and we were the number one. We were sponsored paid ad on Google underneath it, and they were calling us thinking they were calling our competitor, and we were able to turn them into a service call. And so then that also goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's no loyalty in our industry, in the residential industry. It's like, oh, I don't even know who y'all are, but can y'all come out?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. It's like,
Well, it's also, I mean, this is
Yeah.
credit to you and Chris, but like, you'd be surprised sometimes we'll do campaigns like that, which we know how to get competitor campaigns if they're
Right.
searching for a competitor to get
just
you to
bidding
show
on
up.
names. Yeah.
But then when they call, sometimes literally the person answers the phone, if there's not proper training, we're like, oh, no, we're not them.
Here, let me give you their number.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's not the point. There's not enough good
But
marketing
I
in the
didn't even
world.
have to coach them on. I mean, they were doing
That's
that on
good.
their own.
That's
So,
good. Yeah.
I don't think they converted every one of them into us, but they converted their fair share of
Yeah.
them into.
But I mean, just a quick pitch. Hey,
yeah.
we're the only one that doesn't send out commission-based and salespeople.
That's
Like, that would be just a one line thing.
I just don't know how we can convey where that. I don't think people understand. I don't think they care, because you got to. But people make crazy decisions all the time. Because I've watched some of these things on these like car dealerships. There's a finance manager on car dealers. It's amazing how many people come in there and they've got all this, and you're like, I didn't even know this was a thing. But I'm talking about like, I mean, they got to have $50,000 of negative equity in a car. I mean, I didn't even know you could do that. And they're trading it in and getting another car and rolling that negative equity into their next car. And they're sitting here driving around in a Hyundai Sonata or whatever that is a $40,000 car that they owe $100,000 on, and they got a $1,200 or $1,300. And then I sit there and go, what do these people do for a living? They got a $1,200 or $1,300 car payment. I don't even know how you afford that. And it's like, but I think it's such a, I don't know, consumer thought processes that's a complicated.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
It's not always in logic or reason.
Maybe that's our next marketing initiative project. But like, I will say, typically X factors, like if you're trying to distinguish a company from one to another, it's got to be quick. You got to be able to articulate it very quick. And the concept of a commission-based salesperson, the problems that creates for the consumer are not. It's not simple, easy, quick to understand.
No, it's not.
thing.
It's not a quick.
It's not
thing.
like a one-liner. But I do think there's probably a way.
And they don't understand what I'm saying when I say that.
Yeah.
That service guy is a commission-based guy, huh? They don't even understand. They don't comprehend that that's a thing. But mechanics are the same. That's what makes me think that that Michael may have to get on the train with him at some point, because it started with the auto mechanic side, because they've been like that for a long time, where they get whatever that, especially in the dealerships, whatever that task is, they get paid a flat fee for this task. It's not even an hourly rate, so more they can churn through there on this, and if they can upsell, they can make more money. And so it started kind of there, and then it's come to, so it may just be that that's the new service model that we're living in. And you maybe just swimming against the water and not getting anywhere if you just try to.
It's like the tips. Everyone's tip culture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, everything you do this day and age, there's a tip request at the end.
Whether they did anything or not. That's true. You go get a to-go order and go to the window and pick it up, there's a tip line on there. Or to-go pizza. You go to Domino's and get a pizza, and there's a tip line on there. And they didn't even deliver it to you. All it is, do what they were paid to do, is make a pizza. And so I don't know. But I do question whether my moral standard of how we should do business is, maybe it's an old-fashioned way of doing it, and it doesn't work anymore. I do question it a lot, because I do think I see which is unfortunate, because it's the right way to do it. I agree, but I see the success of that model over and over and over, and talk to people who are running that model and talking about how great it is and how it's improved their bottom lines and done all this.
But I wonder if that's short term or if that's long term.
Well, it's been going on long enough now that I don't know that you can look at it like that anymore. I mean, it's been going on 5-10 years now, or it started probably 10 years ago, but it's really in the last 5 or 6 years been super strong. And so, and more and more people have gone to it. Now in Mississippi, in our small town, it's not like that over there. You don't see any of that over there. It's all larger markets you see it in. Here is going to be heavy. Huntsville's heavy. Birmingham's going to be heavy like that. Nashville, they're all going to be highly commissioned type deals. And maybe it is because, like, in a small town, your name means something. Like, you go where in Tupelo, where I live, the residential guys there. I mean, you ask somebody who they're getting, there's like 4 real residential companies there that are of any size, and pretty much most of them are going to use one of them. For most people, when you ask them, they're going to name a specific one that they use. And I think when you get to a city size element like Huntsville, and especially like Atlanta, nobody has where you got, when you pull up, hey, air conditioning companies in Huntsville, I mean, there's 30 of them or 40 of them or whatever it pop up, and here there's 200 that'll pop up in Atlanta. Maybe there's that brand awareness of the company kind of just dissipates, and so it's all about, we got to capitalize while we're in that home on that day to get as much money as we can, because the chances of us getting another call back to that home are slim.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying, on deals where we're doing PMs in a house, and we got a thing where we're coming by twice a year and buy an air conditioner, and we didn't even get the phone call on it. Yeah. And they know we do air conditioning because we're servicing their air conditioners. Yeah. and our phone number's on there.
On the unit. It's on the thermostat, yeah.
It's like, come on now. It's just I don't know, consumer, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I'm waffling on my stances on it. Chris is really wanting to go commission.
Yeah. Well, maybe we have him on, pick his brain on it. Because I know that that's anyone, and especially the home service space, is working through that for sure right now. If they're
all working toward it, or trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with it. I don't like it.
Me neither.
I don't like it at all.
But I also want, good businesses to succeed and grow.
That's right.
So if there's a good way to do it, and I feel like it's all about, you don't want to create negative incentives.
That's right.
So maybe there's a quantitative and qualitative component to that structure that someone needs to invent that has accountability built into it. But I don't know. Then it takes work to figure out. I don't know
if you'll ever figure it out.
Yeah. Well, kind of going back to Harbinger, tell me about the when I first came out there and met with you. What were your thoughts about the assessment process? Because I know that's probably something you hadn't done with your last 2 marketing companies.
I think we've talked about it before. I can't remember if I talked to.
We did the testimonial.
Okay, and so that was a different approach than I'd seen. But as you thought about it, it's an approach that made a lot of sense to me, because everybody, that's a lot of money, and it's like, well, you're fixing to spend a lot of money, and so you're not going to do any study on what needs to be done. You're just going to start throwing, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 a month out on Google Ads and not even know what we're doing. That was kind of the, after, because it was a different approach, and after we talked and I got looking at it, it was like, it makes sense to pay to have something. Let's look at what we're doing good and what we're doing bad and figure out where we need to go, instead of just jumping in there and hammering down, and
we can do it better.
We don't have any direction, It's just kind of like, let's just roll through this. And that's the approach they all, and I don't think most of them right now, I don't think they're looking for, I think what most of these web marketing companies look for is somebody that they can just get to pay a monthly fee to. And you really don't know if you're doing anything or not. That's the vibe you get looking back, because we interviewed a bunch of them when we interviewed y'all. That's kind of the vibe. It's like, when can we start? When can we start? It's going to be this much a month. And it's like, y'all never gave us that. You were like, we need to do a dig into this. And then, you're going to have to pay for this initial assessment. And I can't even remember how much it was now. I remember it was more than it was.
Like 10.
Huh?
I think like 10.
Yeah, maybe. And at the time, it's kind of like, that's a lot of money. Well, when you start thinking about it, I mean, y'all probably had, and I may be speaking out, but I would guess you probably had 80 or 100 hours tied up in doing that.
It's 100. So like our assessment rate's $100 per hour, which is our lowest hourly rate. So yeah, 100 hours were about what it was.
That's what I would have guessed.
But like in that assessment, we often find on an audit, oh look, here the last 6 months you've wasted $40,000 on this keyword. or in this geographic. It's like,
and it's all put together so you can understand it, and it gave you when we kicked off going forward, then we had a roadmap that was drawn. You're sitting there, you got a roadmap drawn out of this is where we're weak, this is where we got to do something. And I don't know, I thought it's kind of like, I kind of looked at it as after I comprehended and digested what we were doing, it was like, I don't know how you afford not to do it. It's kind of like somebody's, because we use an outside CPA firm with our company too. And it's like, I look at it kind of in the same way, everybody, because I use them. They're very involved. We don't we don't see them just at tax season. They're in our office a couple times a month helping us on stuff. And so everybody, how do you afford to pay a CPA all that? Da, 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 da. I'm like, how do you afford not to? I mean, I'm not a CPA. I'm not a marketing guy. It's like even hiring people in your office. You hire people for jobs and what they're good at, and you compensate that person for that, or that vendor or whatever it is for that expertise. And I just don't see how, if you want to know what you're doing, if you're hiring somebody that doesn't do something like that, how do they know what you need?
Take time to think about it.
Can't
just, the marketing program you would offer to let's say a $5 million company that wants to go to 10 million is different than the one that is 2 wanting to go to 3.
Yeah.
The budget should be different. Like the
everything's
program,
different.
everything's different.
Yeah.
But and everyone wants to just like you said, prepackage a monthly. This is what you do. And
then, and believe it or not, sometimes I would imagine you run across people that are doing some things good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's like, okay, we really don't want to change what you're doing right there. That is, we need to continue on with that in that segment, because there's always different things, but that section, let's leave it alone. Let's kind of keep progressing like we're doing. Whereas if you just look at it as a shotgun approach, you're going to come in, you're going to implement your system across everything they do, and ignore that, hey, they were actually good at that. They may have actually been better at it than we are, and just completely throw that out and you ignore. So and then the flip side of it is it also gave you a chance. You guys, y'all did it, as part of that, y'all did an assessment on our top competitors in the area and what they were doing marketing wise and how we stacked up against all that. And that helps too, to know what we're up against, which we'd never had that done before either. So there's, and then you find out these guys you think are doing really, that are like awesome stuff, is like, they're not really, it makes you feel a little better, because after, meeting with you guys, it's like, oh, that we can topple that. And, we're starting to, especially on our because that's always been a focus with us, was SEO stuff. And, it's really changing now. And of course, you can turn on the ads, and anybody can do ads and find and hunt keywords, but you start doing that SEO stuff and doing stuff that's meaningful to move the needle on that. That's hard to do.
Well, anyone can do ads, but I will say, like in your audit, it's easy to bid on your own name. Oh
yeah, buy it on the wrong words and
or
stuff.
bid on your own name.
That's right. We were bidding on our own name.
A ton. Yeah, a lot of your budget. I think it was like 20% of your budget.
That's something I will say too, is, you and I, and you do early on, spent a lot of time talking about keywords. What are words we're looking, because, one of the things we talked about a lot is, and everybody's like, oh, it turns into a sale on a new unit. It's like, we can get all the preventative maintenance work we want, or all the service work we want. What we're, one of the big things we're chasing is we want to be, because most homeowners are going to ask for a second or third price on an air conditioning unit, when they've got to replace one. And so, we're getting most of the ones that we're pricing off of our service calls. What we're trying to get, our big focus is we're going to spend all that money on the clicks, is like, let's get a real pull through item. And we want to be the second or the third call on the replacement of somebody else's diagnosed, because that's what we're hunting for. Because everybody's, that's one thing our last people was, everything was on service, and we just kept getting like, dang, we can't do all this service. And it's like, but it was all.
And there's a big chunk of that you never control, because if someone searches HVAC replacement, repair, you don't know.
But we still were able to narrow that down a lot better than what it was, because we've cut out a lot of our bogus calls, because we were getting crazy calls.
Now let's not talk about what keywords we cut out. We don't want to
I'm not,
let your competitors know the strategy.
But we were getting calls. I remember back when we had the other group, we were getting calls out of like Anniston, Alabama, Birmingham. It's like we're getting calls all over the place. And it's like, it's 3 hours from us. We can't go down there and work. And so,
well, even during like the first 90-day optimization period, I think our weekly call helped a lot because we were also getting calls for incorrect services or companies. But by continually to meet every week and understanding the type of calls you guys were getting, we give it back to the ad specialists and they're adding negative keywords and optimizing.
That's a really key thing, is that weekly call with you. And that may be more than should be done. I don't know. I don't know if that's normal for y'all. And, because some weeks, because we do cancel and you cancel. And sometimes we'll go a couple of weeks without talking to each other. But yeah, it is very seldom. But in some weeks it's a 15-minute call, and some weeks it's an hour call. And then, I know Chris is using y'all now on like helping him with his shirts and helping him with his hats and, trying to come up with a continuous image. And on our vans, you designed our wraps on our vans now over there. They look really good. And
then we got Chris connected Jason with us, and we helped us with a HOA flyer for residential services.
And then got some stuff out of that HOA flyer.
And then there was a spring train campaign going on that we helped put together, like an email promo for that.
So do you feel like, because what I told you is you're going to have your own marketing director. Do you feel like Sal feels like your marketing director? Putting you on the spot.
I do feel like Sal's part of our team. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's just easy to get. Getting easy to get in touch with. He always has good news. He doesn't ever bring me bad news.
Try not to.
Way to go, Sal.
It's just the way I word it.
Way to go.
But no, I think it's very much exactly as it was presented to me. We've been very happy in the whole process. And I think as we're figuring things out with our little group over there, what y'all do for us will continue to grow and make it better. Because, like last year, it was no fault of y'all, but we had run into some cash flow on that. And I called Sal. I was like, we got to slow up till I figure out what's going on. Why are we? Because we just had an issue. We weren't making money. And they were making money, but not anywhere close to what I thought they should have been making. And, but I was like, it was not a lack of the calls. It was a billing issue on our end. And so, but I just kind of stopped everything for a minute while we were sorting through trying to figure it. It took us a couple of months to figure it all out. But,
yeah, I think that's really important for everyone to hear, because there's no magic bullet.
There is
marketing doesn't actually help you grow your business unless you have the people, you have the operations, you got the billing.
There's just so many things that go with it. Because it's like me and you were talking about the guy that grew like 100% or whatever, and it's like in the paving business, and it's like we can't do that. We can't scale up. Y'all, I think y'all could drive more business our way than we can scale up to me. If we really release the spend, which we spend a decent fund for what we do, but theoretically we could spend more. But that's the problem. It's coming up, and anybody watching this, if they're in business, knows the ability to hire people, quality people. We can hire helpers all day, but finding the kind of people we need out there representing us is very difficult for what we want to have working for us. And so, you can outmarket your abilities. And so that's been a challenge. And that's also a challenge at the size they're at. I think because Alabama Climate, I think it was a little less than $2 million a year when we bought it. And that's what at lunch we're talking about, should do 5 this year. And so that group, if they were at 8 to 10 right now, you could ramp a lot more. There's something about, if anybody's watching, to me, there's something about these companies, these service companies and things. Once you get above that 8 to 10 million range, the whole dynamic of that company changes. Your ability to grow faster changes. Everything about it, just your dynamics of the company. You're at a size where if you lose a person, it's not catastrophic. 4 to 5 million. You lose a top service guy, then it's a It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And, you know, it's always a big deal to lose a top guy, but I mean, the bigger you get, the more of those guys you have. And so if you lose one, it's painful, but it's not the end of the world. Where and you're small, if you lose one, and the smaller you get, when you lose a key person like that, it's just catastrophic. And even when you're not losing keys people, when you're really small, like the guys we're talking about that are doing $1 million a year, you know, that guy, he's probably still working out there on his own, and he's got a couple of helpers or something that work with him doing jobs. And like he has a helper quit that shows up every day and works hard and knows what he wants to do and how, you know, how to do, to be good at that job. If that guy quits, puts that small company in a bind, because he just lost 30% of his workforce. You know, even though he's a helper, that's 30% of his workforce, and that's including him. You know, so a lot of them are 3-man shop, 4-man shops. You're losing 25 or 30% of your workforce. Whereas, you know, you get up to, if you're doing 8 to 10 million and you're primarily a service company, I mean, you're going to have 50 people or something like that, 50, 60 people. So if you lose one, it's not as catastrophic. Whereas now Alabama Climate Control's got about 20, 22, somewhere in there. So, you know, you lose one, it's painful. And so the bigger they get, the easier it is to grow, because you're not always, it's just easier. You can absorb, if you're 10 million, you can absorb another $1 million of work a whole lot easier than if you're 4 or 5 million and trying to absorb $1 million worth of work. So, you know, at 10 million, you can grow by $2 million a year. Whereas to try to grow 2 million in 1 year now for us is be extremely painful. You can grow 500,000 to maybe $1 million a year right now, and be able to pull it off without sacrificing your quality or your service. But, or just working them like a mule, you know, because I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you got to talking about your work-life balance. That doesn't just apply to the guy in the office or the owner. That applies to your people, because as you're growing, you're always asking more of your people. You're always asking, we need, you know, and the hourly guys, and you got some guys that love overtime, but you got a lot of guys that they'll do it here and there, but, you know, at the end of the day, they're like, hey, man, it's not, you know, I got stuff to do this weekend. I don't want to work Saturday and Sunday. And everybody has these, if you're in the construction, everybody's got these. There's certain guys that want to work 7 days a week, every week. There's people out there that's just the way. If you'll work them 7/12s, they're like, all right. This blows my mind. There's those guys out there. But then there's a lot of them that they want to work their 5/8s or 5/10s or whatever you're working. And they want to go home on Saturday and Sunday. And I mean, they'll jump in and help you. You know, if you got a shutdown or something on a weekend, that's not a big deal. If it's planned out, we're going to work Saturday this weekend or something like that. But if you're trying to grow and you're just trying to keep caught up on working, executing work, and you're working your guys every weekend for as long as they can remember as you grow, I mean, you're affecting their work. You'll lose them because they're making plenty of money, but you're going to lose them because they lost their work-life balance. Because now that's one thing I will say. You're talking about how do we keep our crew together and things like that. I mean, we've got, most of our guys are family guys, man. They're all about their kids and all that stuff. You know, we're now at a point where we got multiple siblings or father sons that work for us now. And, you know, but now one thing I have learned on that, you don't let them work together. It's a hindrance to the son. They don't learn anything. The father, by experience, not every time, but enough that I don't let it. We're going to separate them, because the father always puts that big wing around that son, and I'm going to take care of you, and, you know, nobody's going to pick on you, and you're just going to be my helper. And then 10 years later, they're still a helper, and they hadn't learned anything. And so what we find is you take them away from their dad and put them on a separate crew, they really blossom. Wow. And so, but we've got multiples of those. We've got some brothers at work. We've got multiple sets of brothers that work for us.
That's cool.
So
at a company get together is a fun time, like a family reunion for them.
Family reunion.
That's awesome. So what has you excited with the future of these companies? Like, what are you looking forward to? What do you see the next 3 to 5 years looking like for conditioned air and for Alabama Climate Control?
I think Alabama Climate Control reached my goals of getting to the size they want in the next 5 years. And I'm going to have fun watching my kids figure out how they sort it out. That's what I'm excited about. Because as far as growing anymore, I'm in a place where I'm happy. I'm not a growth drive as far as just see how big we can get. I'm past that. I'm 52, so I'm out of my prime.
You're right.
So I'm really kind of a point where I'm comfortable. I don't require a lot to maintain what I want to do in life. I like to travel and like to do some things, but it's like I've kind of all my goals in life have really kind of there already. So, but now where I would re-engage if the kids, once Will gets out of school, gets out of college, and Lawson kind of grows up, and then the company on the route he's at and all that comes together, and then if I see them really engage and jump into it, then I could see me doing this till I'm in my 80s.
That's awesome.
I mean, just
let them
do
drive and
it.
run hard.
I'll just come down here. I'll do. I look forward to being the guy that just comes in about twice a week, stirs everything up, makes everybody mad, and then I can leave. That's what I look forward to.
That's awesome.
That's like the best thing ever.
Man, I only got 40 more years to go.
I mean, think about that. How much fun would that be just to come in and check your mail and stir the world up and
checking on your sons?
Yeah,
it's the
go in
dream.
there and tell them how they're doing everything wrong. And to make them second guess themselves and then leave.
Hey, when you come in, make time for the marketing meeting with Sal, though, okay?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.